The Philadelphia 76ers recently went up against Utah Jazz, and they managed to take them down with a 7-point margin. Joel Embiid's contribution to that win can't be understated, with many calling his time on the court the stuff of legends. Some are even comparing him to the late Wilt Chamberlain, one of NBA's biggest star centers, pointing to his statistics. We'll be covering all of that and more in today's video. First up, Embiid makes history. When the Philadelphia 76ers went up against Utah Jazz in November, no one could have expected what 76ers center Joel Embiid was going to do. It was statistically the greatest performance that the 28-year-old has ever managed in his entire career so far, and it's definitely what took the team to victory. Embiid scored a ridiculous 59 points while he was on the court. That's more than half of the team's total score at 105. Overall, he added 11 rebounds, 8 assists, and 7 blocked shots to his record. The thing is, that's much more than he needed to write his name into the history books. With just 50 points, 10 boards, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 blocks, he became the first player to pull that off in a single game since blocks started being taken into account in 1973. The display of skill from Embiid that day puts him in the top 5 performances in the 76ers history, below Wilt Chamberlain, who holds the 3 top spots, and Allen Iverson. But this isn't just a one-off thing for the Cameroonian, and he'd also had an impressive game just the day before, when the 76ers met with the Atlanta Hawks. During that matchup, he scored 42 points out of the team's winning total of 121. When asked about how he felt after the game, 76ers coach Doc Rivers told reporters that he'd never seen a more dominating performance from a setup that combined offense and defense.
I've seen a guy score a lot of points. I haven't seen guys score a lot of points, rebound, and then the block shots. I mean, that was impressive.
Coming up, breaking down Embiid's performance. The way Embiid's been playing has given analysts a lot to talk about these days. John Cregan, a fantasy basketball analyst for ESPN, is one of the people that's really been taken by how impressive the 28-year-old has been lately. He rewatched the game with Utah Jazz, and what really stuck with him is the impact that atypical possession can have on a match. A big part of what made Embiid's game so special was the fact that he was playing as a center in the position of a point guard. This impact from atypical possession is, in his opinion, best seen when a 3, 4, or 5 plays in the position of a 1 or a 2, though it can definitely be interesting to see a 2 play as a 1, and even more so when a 1 plays as a 2 as the distributor, then has to think of scoring first rather than passing. It's still not the same. Players in those roles are generally used to shifting positions, so there's not much in terms of untapped potential to be seen there. But when you give the offense to a player that normally plays as a small forward, power forward, or center, that's when things get interesting. That's when atypical possession really proves to be impactful. Cregan said that things get really exciting when this atypical possession goes on for an entire game, as it did with Embiid. Next, exploring atypical possession. This isn't the first time audiences have seen atypical possession in action though. Cregan brought up an earlier match in the month between the Washington Wizards and Dallas Mavericks, where the power forward, Kyle Kuzma, was given the keys to the offense for the Wizards. The impact he had wasn't as huge as Embiid's performances, but he still took the Wizards pretty far in their 8-point win. Kuzma's usage spiked up to 33.3 from 25.4 that game. He scored 36 points, making 11 rebounds, 6 assists, and 5 three-pointers. His example is as good as any to support the changeup that Embiid has been subject to. People might just wave this off as being a one-time thing, a chance for Embiid to blow off some steam and boost his morale for when he eventually returns to his defensive position. Cregan admits that there's some truth to that perspective of rewarding a big defensive player with some time in the offense. He brought up Rudy Gobert as an example of that dynamic coming into play.
Works the Wolves into their offense. Around a Gobert screen, the dump off and the throwdown!
That does make things exciting, but it's not as great as what Embiid offers. He believes that Embiid isn't like other bigs in the NBA, and giving him the chance to play as one can prove to be what elevates the 76ers game. Now for Cregan praising Embiid's time-shifting abilities. Cregan was clearly left in awe of Embiid's talent after the Utah game, exaggerating his abilities as though he's superhuman, saying that he has the power to bend time and space. He jokingly said that the key to unlocking those powers was the illness that had overtaken him a week before that fateful game, causing him to drop 15 pounds and making him fly. Having rewatched the week's games, Cregan is confident he knows when that time-bending moment is going to occur. He pointed out the moments when Embiid was going to make a mid-range jumper. When he's really feeling it, he has an extra hitch in his jumper, happening just before his descent. That hitch occurs right after he kicks his legs, which Cregan implies gives him another quarter second of time in the air. He says that generational players tend to have this time-bending ability that keeps them in the air for longer. younger. One of the best historical examples he brought up of this apparent time bending was that of Julius Erving, or Dr. J. It was his legendary layup scoop shot in the 1980s finals. Erving seemingly extends his flight time mid-air and drifts under the backboard to reappear on the court and take the shot from the other side. 40 years on, and people still talk about that moment. That's pretty much what Embiid has been pulling off recently. Cregan said that you can see it happening almost 20 times in the Utah game.
Got 6 guys averaging double figures so far this season. Embiid, what a fake.
Moving on, comparing Embiid to Chamberlain, there's no denying that Embiid's performance against the Jazz and Hawks mirror those of legendary 76ers player Wilt Chamberlain. The Cameroonian may have had a pretty slow start this season, but he's now made it clear that he's one to watch. But there are some details to consider when you compare Chamberlain and Embiid. For one, Embiid's record is a result of that change in 1973 that made blocks an inclusion. It was in that year that Chamberlain retired, so there was a clear division between Wilt's era and the time that came after. So Chamberlain's blocks haven't really officially made it into the books. Still, many who have seen the later center play defense can testify that his abilities on that end match or even exceed his scoring prowess. But even if it's not official, there are still some records that give us insight into Chamberlain's game. Consider the Jazz game and how Embiid broke the record for at least 50 points, 10 rebounds, and the rest. Unofficially, according to NBAstats.net's game logs, it's been shown that Chamberlain had actually accomplished that feat an astounding 22 times at least. It's not the only thing that connects these two though. Over the course of just 2 days, Embiid managed to secure more than 100 points and 20 rebounds. That's the first time anyone had done so since Chamberlain in 1967, and the 4th time anyone's done that ever apart from Chamberlain, who'd apparently done it 35 times in total. Lastly, let's discuss Embiid's last season. Embiid might be a hot topic right now, but that doesn't mean he hasn't been making things happen for the 76ers prior to this month. Just last season, following the signing of a massive contract extension for 4 years that amounts to almost $200 million, Embiid was stacking up a ton of points for the team.
He and his game are.
The offensive rebound.
In his first game with the team since missing out on 9 games due to COVID, he managed to put up 42 points on the board, adding 14 more rebounds to his record as well. Though they did lose by 1 point in overtime in that game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, it was clear that Embiid was going to be a major player that season. In February of this year, he recorded his 4th ever career triple-double with 40 points, 14 rebounds, and 10 assists, even back when the comparison to Chamberlain was being brought up, as he'd become the first 76ers player since Wilt in 1968 to log a 40-point triple-double. Then in April, he joined Chamberlain in another exclusive group of players. He became the 5th in NBA history following the introduction of the shot clock in 1955 to score at least 40 points and log 20 rebounds while shooting 80% or better from the field. Others that have that honor are Charles Barkley, John Drew, and Bob Pettit. Embiid still has a lot of years ahead of him, and there's no telling how high he's going to soar.
In there.
Yeah, that type of situation, you're just trying to throw him off.
Oh, bring it down.
That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Embiid will keep playing offense this season? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.